Buddhism says the most compassionate thing you can do for someone is sometimes walk away from them. If that sounds selfish, you've probably spent years pouring yourself empty for people who never refilled you and called it love. By the end of this, you'll understand the difference between compassion that heals and compassion that quietly destroys you. Because real freedom doesn't begin when the cage breaks open. It begins the moment you realize you were the one holding the door shut. It was a quiet night. Moonlight filtered through the leaves of the trees. The wind had almost stilled. Somewhere in the distance, the soft sound of flowing water drifted through the air. The disciples sat in silence. Each one turned inward, facing their own heart. But one of them sat with his head bowed low. His shoulders trembled, just slightly. He had been carrying something for a long time. The master noticed, the way still water notices a single stone dropped into its depths, not with alarm, but with complete attention. He did not speak, did not move closer, only continued to sit with the same steady breath, the same open hands resting in his lap. And somehow, in that unhurried stillness, the disciple felt something loosen in his chest, like a knot finally remembering it was once just rope. This happened about 2,500 years ago. One night in India, a group of the Buddha's disciples had gone to meditate in a forest. It was meant to be a place of stillness, but stillness would not come. The forest, it turned out, was home to tree spirits, and those spirits were not pleased to have uninvited guests. Night after night, they filled the air with eerie sounds and unsettling shapes, trying to drive the disciples away. Fear crept in, sleep became impossible, meditation was out of reach. Finally, the disciples returned to the Buddha and asked with weary faces, "Teacher, our minds simply cannot settle in that forest. May we go somewhere else?" The Buddha looked at them for a long, quiet moment. Then he said, "Go back, but this time take a weapon with you, the weapon of words." The disciples were puzzled. A weapon made of words? What could that mean? The Buddha smiled gently and began to teach them a poem that would later be preserved in the ancient text known as the Sutta Nipata. It is called the Metta Sutta, or the teaching on loving kindness. Slowly he spoke, "May all living beings be happy, may they be at peace, may they be free from suffering, may they live without fear, in safety and in ease." The poem continued, "The weak and the strong, the large and the small, the seen and the unseen, those nearby and those far away, those already born and those yet to come, toward every living being send this wish." And then the Buddha added something that stopped the disciples in their tracks. Just as a mother would protect her only child, even at the cost of her own life, so too should you cultivate a boundless, limitless heart toward all living beings. The disciples carried those words back into the forest. This time they did not try to fight the fear. Instead, they quietly, inwardly offered those wishes, to the forest, to the spirits, to every presence around them. Something shifted. The spirits' hostility slowly softened. The fear inside the disciples dissolved, replaced by a strange and gentle calm. And in time, it is said, even the spirits came to welcome them. There is one more line in that poem that is worth holding on to. "Without hatred, without hostility, walk alone through the forest as an elephant walks alone. No fighting, no rushing, just an elephant, moving through the trees at its own pace, in its own direction, undisturbed." There is a deep wisdom about human relationships hidden inside this poem. When we hear the phrase, "extend compassion to all living beings," some of us immediately think, does that mean I have to be kind even to people who hurt me? Do I have to keep accepting it? Here is what's important to understand. Compassion does not mean tolerance. It does not mean staying, enduring, shrinking yourself to keep the peace. Compassion means wishing for someone's well-being. You can sincerely wish for a person's happiness while also, quietly, choosing to step back from a relationship that wounds you. That too is compassion. When the Buddha described the elephant walking alone through the forest, there was intention in that image. Elephants do sometimes move in herds, but an old elephant or an injured one will sometimes walk deep into the forest alone, not out of weakness, out of a quiet, steady strength, a knowing that it must take care of its own life. In Buddhist teaching, there is a word, upekkha, equanimity. It sounds complex, but at its heart it simply means this: releasing your grip on things you cannot control, not pushing people away in anger, not abandoning them with contempt, just gently uncurling your fingers and letting the relationship rest where it is. When we are close to someone, we are so often bound by invisible threads. I cannot disappoint them. I must be needed. I cannot be the one to break this. And those threads, over time, can become the very thing that causes us pain. The poem says something we sometimes forget. When the Buddha wished happiness for all living beings, you were included in that number. You are not outside the circle. Wishing for your own well-being is not selfishness. Taking care of yourself is not weakness. If you pour from an empty cup, there is nothing left for anyone. The reason the Buddha gave his disciples the poem was not so they could defeat the spirits or prove something. It was so they could light a small, steady lamp inside themselves, because without that light, they would have nothing to offer the darkness around them. Letting go of a draining relationship is not about cutting people out. It is about protecting the light inside you so it keeps burning. Let's bring this a little closer to home, to the life you are actually living today. Maybe there is someone at work who leaves you feeling deflated every time you cross paths. Maybe there is a family member whose words, however familiar, somehow always find the place that hurts. A friendship that only flows in one direction, where you are always the one who adjusts, who shows up, who gives. And still, you stay. Because leaving feels cruel. Because you wonder if you're just being too sensitive. Because somewhere along the way you decided that being a good person means absorbing it all. Remember the elephant walking alone through the forest. The elephant does not leave the herd in anger. It does not storm away to make a point. It simply turns slowly and walks in a different direction. That is all. When we talk about letting go of certain relationships, it can sound dramatic, like slamming a door. But in practice, it is often something much quieter, much smaller. An internal decision made without fanfare. You don't have to reply to every message the moment it arrives. You don't have to say yes every time you're invited somewhere. You can see someone a little less often, not to punish them, but simply because you notice that every time you leave their company, you need a day to recover. You don't have to change everything at once. Move like the elephant, unhurried, quiet, one step at a time. And when the guilt comes, and it will come, I want you to remember this line from the poem, "May all living beings be happy." You are one of those beings. You are allowed to want peace for yourself. You are allowed to need it. Sometimes stepping back is even a kindness to the other person. A version of you that is exhausted and resentful is not truly present with anyone. A version of you that has had room to breathe, to rest, to return to yourself. That person has something real to offer. Whether you are raising children, caring for aging parents, or navigating a difficult workplace, this applies to you. You do not have to carry every relationship at the same depth. You do not have to hold everything with the same tight grip. Walk your own forest, at your own pace. That is what a poem written 2,500 years ago is still quietly telling us. Before we can release certain relationships, we first have to understand why drawing boundaries is itself an act of compassion, something we explored in a previous teaching. You'll find a link in the description below. If I were to put today's teaching into a single sentence, it would be this: walking away is not the same as giving up. Compassion does not ask you to endure everything with a smile. It asks you to wish for the well-being of all living beings, and you are one of them. Your peace is not a luxury. It is not selfishness dressed up with a nicer name. Your peace is something that quietly ripples outward, touching everyone around you. If you have spent today carrying something heavy, I see that. If you have been wounded again and again inside relationships that should have felt safe, I see that too. I want to leave you with this image: an elephant, moving through the forest, no sound, no resentment, no rush, just the steady weight of its own footsteps, one after the other, on its own chosen path. There's a strength in that image that I find deeply moving, a beauty in it too. You are allowed to walk that way, to honor your own pace, to choose your own forest. Thank you for spending this time with me today.